distant future, human civilization has reached unprecedented heights. Technology has advanced at breakneck speed, cities are ablaze with lights, and people enjoy the good life brought by peace and prosperity. However, a sudden catastrophe destroys all of this in an instant. It was an unknown virus that slipped into the world as silently as a ghost, spreading rapidly across the globe. Within moments of infection, people lost their minds, transforming into bloodthirsty zombies that roamed the streets in search of fresh flesh. Cities fell, civilization collapsed, and human society plunged into an unprecedented crisis. Chapter 1. The beginning of the apocalypse. Li Hao, an ordinary programmer, narrowly escaped this catastrophe. He hid in his cramped apartment, gazing out the window at the terrifying world beyond. Zombies roamed the streets, emitting spine-chilling growls. He knew full well that he had to leave this place as soon as possible and find a safe haven. On his journey of escape, Li Hao encountered many others fleeing for their lives. Some were terrified, others desperate, and still others resilient. Among them, one girl caught his attention. Her name was Lin Wanner, a college student with a strong will and keen insight. As they fled, they supported one another, gradually becoming each other's most steadfast support. The group traversed the fallen city, enduring countless life and death trials. The encounter with the zombies sent shivers down their spines, but each time, they managed to turn danger into safety through their wit and courage. In the process, Li Hao gradually demonstrated his ability to analyze situations calmly and make decisive decisions, emerging as the leader of this small group. Chapter 2. The Secret of the Shelter. After several days of trekking, Li Hao and his group finally arrived at a remote town, Greenville. Rumor had it that a mysterious shelter existed here, capable of withstanding zombie attacks. Upon reaching the town's entrance, they saw a sturdy barbed wire fence, isolating the town from the outside world. The fence was covered with warning signs reading, "Danger, no trespassing." Yet these signs did nothing to deter them. They knew this was their only hope. After passing through the barbed wire, they arrived in front of a dilapidated church. The church doors were tightly shut. Exuding an air of mystery, Li Hao pushed the door open and stepped inside cautiously. Inside, the church was dim and silent, with only a few faint beams of light streaming through the windows onto the floor. They walked down the church aisle until they reached a room. The door was ajar, and a faint glow shone from within. Li Hao pushed it open to find a white-haired old man sitting at a table, intently studying something. The old man looked up, his gaze sweeping over them sharply. Then, he spoke slowly. "Who are you? Why have you come here?" Li Hao told the old man about their ordeal and the reason for their visit. After listening, the old man fell silent for a moment, then said slowly, "This is indeed a refuge, but not the kind you imagine. It exists because I possess a special ability, the ability to control zombies." Li Hao and his companions were stunned by this revelation and stared at the old man in disbelief. The old man merely smiled faintly and continued, "This ability is not something I sought, but it has allowed me to survive in this post-apocalyptic world. I established this sanctuary to protect the innocent from harm by the zombies." Under the old man's guidance, Li Hao and his companions gradually adapted to life in the sanctuary. They went out during the day to search for supplies and returned to the church at night to rest. With the old man's instruction, they also learned some basic defensive and survival skills. Yet, a question remained in their hearts: when would this post-apocalyptic world finally come to an end? Chapter 3. Hope and Despair. As time went on, Li Hao and the others gradually uncovered some of the shelter's secrets. It turned out the old man was no ordinary elderly man. He had once been a renowned scientist, specializing in biological viruses. At the very onset of the zombie virus outbreak, he had realized the horror of this virus and began working on a cure. However, the research process was far from smooth. The virus mutated rapidly, making a cure extremely difficult to achieve. Although the old man had mastered some methods to control the zombies, he could never find the key to a complete cure for the virus. This left him deeply frustrated, and at one point, he even fell into despair. After learning of this situation, Li Hao and his companions were also filled with worry. They knew that only by finding a cure for the virus could they truly bring an end to this post-apocalyptic world. So, they began to search more actively for supplies and research material, hoping to offer the old man some assistance. However, hope is always accompanied by despair. During a foraging expedition, they were ambushed by a horde of zombies. Although they managed to escape, one of their teammates was unfortunately bitten and infected with the virus. Watching their teammate struggle in agony as the virus took hold, Li Hao and his team were overcome with helplessness and despair. They knew all too well that once infected, one would inevitably turn into a zombie, losing all humanity and reason. They could not accept this cruel reality, yet they were powerless to change it. Chapter 4. The Scientist's Last Wish. The loss of their teammate only strengthened Li Hao and his companions' resolve to find a cure for the virus. They began to study the virus's characteristics and modes of transmission more deeply, hoping to uncover some clues. Under the old man's guidance, they gradually discovered some weaknesses in the virus. However, these weaknesses were too minute and complex to be effectively utilized in creating a cure. They found themselves in a predicament, at a loss for what to do. Just then, the old man suddenly fell ill. Lying in bed with a faint pulse, he seemed as if he might leave this world at any moment. Li Hao and the others were filled with anxiety and fear. They knew that once the old man passed away, they would lose their only hope and support. Yet the old man appeared unusually calm. He struggled to open his eyes and looked at Li Hao and the others, saying, "I know my time is nearly up, but please do not give up. The cure for the virus is hidden within my research notes. You must find it and bring new life to this world." With those words, the old man closed his eyes and left this world forever. Li Hao and the others were filled with grief and despair, but they knew they could not betray the old man's dying wish. They began to study the old man's research materials even more diligently, hoping to find a cure for the virus. Chapter 5. The Dark Before Dawn. In the old man's research materials, Li Hao and his team discovered some crucial clues. These clues pointed to a distant location, a long-abandoned research base. It was said that important research data and experimental equipment related to the virus were preserved there. To find a cure for the virus, Li Hao and his team decided to journey to that distant research base. They knew this would be a journey fraught with danger and uncertainty, but they were willing to take the risk for the sake of humanity's future. On their way to the research base, they encountered countless difficulties and challenges: zombie attacks, harsh weather, and a lack of supplies. Each time, they found themselves in life-threatening situations. Yet, with unwavering conviction and tenacious perseverance, they managed to turn danger into safety time and time again. Finally, after enduring countless hardships, they arrived at the remote research base. The base lay in ruins, as if forgotten in the dust of time. Yet, there they discovered the research materials and experimental equipment left behind by the old man. Chapter 6. A Ray of Hope. At the research base, Li Hao and his team began their intense research work. Using the materials and equipment left by the old man, they conducted continuous experiments and validations. Every failure left them disheartened, but every success filled them with elation. After countless attempts and setbacks, they finally discovered a substance capable of inhibiting viral replication. This substance could prevent the virus from spreading within the human body, thereby achieving a cure. However, the substance was unstable and required further optimization and refinement. To optimize this substance, Li Hao and his team embarked on a new round of research. They worked day and night, constantly conducting experiments and making adjustments. Finally, after countless sleepless nights, they successfully developed a stable cure. This cure could completely eradicate the zombie virus, restoring humanity and sanity to those infected. Li Hao and his team were overjoyed, as if they had glimpsed the dawn of victory. They knew that this apocalyptic world was finally coming to an end. Chapter 7. The Day of Rebirth. Thanks to the joint efforts of Li Hao and his team, the cure was successfully distributed to various shelters and survivo. The zombie virus was gradually brought under control. The infected were cured, and the world began to slowly return to order. People began rebuilding their homes and restoring the destroyed cities, and the facilities, technology and culture were also gradually revived and developed. Humanity once again ushered in an era of peace and prosperity, but this time, they cherished and appreciated it all the more. Standing on the streets of the rebuilt city, Li Hao gazed at the bustling crowds and the children laughing and playing, his heart filled with emotion. He knew that although this apocalyptic world had ended, those difficult experiences would forever be etched in his heart. They made him cherish life even more, love peace even more deeply, and pursue human happiness and the future with even greater determination. And that dawn that had once illuminated his path forward had forever become his most precious memory and source of strength. GT8. He knew that no matter what difficulties and challenges the future might bring, he would face and overcome them bravely. For that post-apocalyptic world had taught him resilience and courage. And this resilience and courage would accompany him through every stage of his life, forever. The Light of the Apocalypse. Rebirth from Adversity. Chapter 1. The Apocalypse Descends. On that sunny breezy morning, the city's clamor rang out as usual. The hurried footsteps of people and the roar of cars wove together into a bustling urban symphony. Yet this tranquility was merely an illusion before the storm. A sudden viral storm, like the gates of hell being violently flung open, dragged the entire world into endless darkness. Li Hao, an ordinary programmer, was sitting at his desk buried in a sea of code. Suddenly, a rush of hurried footsteps shattered the office's tranquility. He looked up to see his colleague, Xiao Jiang, pale-faced and eyes filled with terror. "Bro, Hao, it's bad. Outside, the streets are swarming with zombies." Xiao Jiang's voice trembled, as if every word carried an unbearable weight. Li Hao froze for a moment, then laughed. "Are you kidding me? Zombies? That's just stuff from the movies." However, Xiao Jiang's expression grew even more terrified. "No, it's real. I just saw it with my own eyes." the people on the street. They suddenly went crazy and started biting anyone they saw. A sense of foreboding suddenly welled up in Li Hao's heart. He hurried to the window, pulled back the curtains, and the scene before him left him frozen in place. On the street, the once bustling crowd had now turned into a horde of frenzied zombies, roaming aimlessly in search of fresh flesh and blood. Is this real? Li Hao muttered to himself, fear washing over him like a tidal wave. Chapter 2. The Road to Escape. Li Hao quickly gathered the essentials, including some food, water, and a sharp dagger. He knew full well that in this post-apocalyptic world, these would be the keys to his survival. On his way out of the office, he ran into several colleagues. They were equally terrified and at a loss. Li Hao stepped forward decisively and suggested they all search for a safe place to take shelter together. The group cautiously made their way through the zombie-infested streets, facing peril at every turn. Yet, in the face of life and death peril, the human will to survive was pushed to its absolute limit. Through wisdom and courage, they narrowly escaped danger time and again. During their escape, Li Hao gradually demonstrated his ability to analyze situations calmly and make decisive decisio. And as he emerged as the leader of this small group, guiding them step by step toward hope. Chapter 3. The Mystery of the Shelter. After several days of trekking, Li Hao and his group finally arrived at a remote town Greenville. Rumor had it that there was a shelter here, untouched by the zombies. When they reached the town's entrance, they saw a tall barbed wire fence separating the town from the outside world. The fence was covered with warning signs reading, "Danger, no trespassing." However, these warning signs did not deter Li Hao and his group. They knew this was their only hope. So, they carefully climbed over the barbed wire and stepped into this mysterious town. The town was eerily quiet, as if completely deserted. They walked along the streets until they reached a dilapidated church. The church door was ajar, and a faint light shone from within. Li Hao pushed the door open and stepped inside cautiously. Inside, they saw some simple beds and food. Clearly someone had been living here. "Is this the shelter?" one of his colleagues asked doubtfully. Li Hao frowned, his mind filled with doubts as well. The shelter looked far too makeshift, and there didn't seem to be any special defensive measures in place. Could this place really withstand a zombie attack? Just as they were pondering this, an aged voice suddenly rang out. "Who are you? Why have you come here?" Li Hao and his group startled and looked in the direction of the voice. They saw a white-haired old man emerging from a corner of the church. His eyes betrayed both wariness and curiosity. Li Hao quickly explained their situation and purpose to the old man. After listening, the old man fell silent for a moment, then spoke slowly. "This is indeed a refuge, but not the kind you imagine. It exists because I possess a special ability, the ability to control zombies." "What?" Li Hao and his companions were stunned, staring at the old man in disbelief. The old man gave a wry smile and continued, "This ability is not something I sought, but it has allowed me to survive in this post-apocalyptic world. I established this sanctuary to protect the innocent from harm at the hands of the zombies." Upon hearing this, Li Hao and the others felt both shocked and moved. They never expected that this seemingly ordinary old man possessed such a miraculous ability. At the same time, they realized that this sanctuary might truly be their only hope. Chapter 4. Fighting Side by Side. Under the old man's guidance, Li Hao and the others gradually adapted to life in the sanctuary. They went out during the day to search for supplies and returned to the church at night to rest. Under the old man's guidance, they also learned some basic defensive and survival skills. However, the peaceful days did not last long. One night, a horde of zombies suddenly attacked the sanctuary. They frantically rammed the barbed wire, attempting to break through this final line of defense. Li Hao and his companions quickly grabbed their weapons, preparing to fight. Yet, faced with the overwhelming horde of zombies, fear still gripped their hearts. Just then, the old man stepped forward. He closed his eyes, pressed his palms together, and began to chant. Moments later, he snapped his eyes open and bellowed, "Stop!" A miraculous thing happened. The zombies, which had been furiously ramming the barbed wire, suddenly froze in place. As if bound by some mysterious force, they stood frozen in place, unable to move. Li Hao and his group seized the opportunity to launch an attack, eliminating the zombies one by one. After this battle, they became even more convinced of the old man's abilities and grew closer together. However, they knew deep down that this was only the beginning. In this post-apocalyptic world, danger lurked everywhere. They would have to be even more cautious and brave to survive in this cruel world. Chapter 5. A Ray of Hope. As time passed, Li Hao and his group gradually found their place within the shelter. They divided tasks and worked together, each fulfilling their duties to maintain this small home. Yet, a question lingered in their hearts. When would this post-apocalyptic world finally come to an end? Would they ever have the chance to see that world filled with sunshine and hope again? The old man seemed to sense their thoughts. One evening, he gathered everyone together and said earnestly, "I know what you're all thinking, but please believe me, this apocalypse will not last forever. One day, we will find a cure for the zombie virus and bring this world back to life." The old man's words reignited the flame of hope in Li Hao and the others. They began searching for supplies and researching the zombie virus with renewed vigor, hoping to find a glimmer of hope for the world. Finally, on a sunny morning they received some good news. A scientist had discovered a weakness in the zombie virus during his research and successfully developed a cure. The news spread rapidly throughout the entire shelter. Li Hao and the others cheered with joy, as if they could already see the dawn of victory. They knew that this apocalyptic world was finally coming to an end. Chapter 6. The Day of Rebirth. Through the joint efforts of Li Hao and his team, the cure was successfully distributed to all the shelters and survivors. The zombie virus was gradually brought under control, and order began to slowly return to the world. However, this disaster also prompted profound reflection among humanity. People began to realize that technological development and civilizational progress cannot fully withstand natural disasters and human greed. Only by cherishing life, protecting the environment, and standing united can we truly create a better future. Standing on the streets of the rebuilt city, Li Hao gazed at the bustling crowds and the children laughing and playing, his heart filled with emotion. He knew that although this post-apocalyptic world had come to an end, new challenges and opportunities awaited them. He took a deep breath and stepped forward with determination. He knew that no matter what difficulties the future might bring, he would face them bravely. For in this world, reborn from adversity, he had found his own light and hope, and that light would forever illuminate the path ahead. Afterglow of the apocalypse, love in adversity. Prologue. Dawn of the apocalypse. On that seemingly ordinary morning, the world quietly met its end. A sudden viral storm swept across the globe. The dead rose from their graves to become bloodthirsty zombies, and the order of civilization collapsed overnight. Cities were reduced to ruins, and the glory of human society was shrouded in a haze of despair. Yet, even in this despair, a glimmer of hope stubbornly flickered. Chapter 1. Survivors. Ali, a former military medic, possessed extraordinary composure and resilience. When the apocalypse struck, she relied on her medical skills and wits to escape from the hellish city. Her destination was the remote town of Greenville, rumored to be a sanctuary untouched by the virus. On her journey, Ellie encounters Jack, a former Special Forces soldier whose eyes also gleam with an indomitable spirit. Their meeting feels like a twist of fate, and they decide to join forces on this journey into the unknown, searching for that legendary safe haven. Chapter 2. Warmth amid the ruins. On their way to Greenville, Ellie and Jack faced countless zombie attacks and betrayals by other humans. Yet it was precisely in these life-or-death battles that a bond between them quietly took root. Whenever night fell, they would huddle together in abandoned buildings, sharing their stories and dreams, using the warmth of their bodies to chase away the chill in their hearts. During a rescue mission, they saved a group of orphans. The children's innocent smile became their most precious treasure. Ellie and Jack resolved to bring these children safely to Greenville, no matter what, so they could have a home again. Chapter 3. A Glimmer of Hope. After countless hardships and dangers, Ellie, Jack, and the children finally reached the outskirts of Greenville. However, they discovered that this was not the paradise they had imagined, but a place controlled by a group of militants who exploited the survivors' despair to establish a brutal regime. Faced with this reality, Ellie and Jack refused to back down. They joined forces with other survivors dissatisfied with the status quo and planned a massive uprising. Through a battle of wits and courage, they gradually closed in on the militants' central stronghold. Chapter 4. The Night of the Final Battle. On the night of the final battle, the moonlight was as red as blood. Ellie and Jack led the rebel forces in a desperate struggle against the militants. In this battle, they faced not only the threat of zombies, but also betrayal and conspiracy from within their own ranks. Just as victory was within their grasp, an unexpected twist occurred. It turned out that the leader of the militants was actually a former scientist who held the key to curing the zombie virus. In his final moments, he handed the antidote to Ellie, hoping she would save the world. Chapter 5. Rebirth. Armed with the antidote, Ellie and Jack successfully overthrew the militants' rule. They used the antidote to cure countless zombies, restoring them to their human forms. Greenville finally welcomed true peace and hope. As they rebuilt their home, Ellie and Jack's love deepened. Standing shoulder to shoulder, they became not only each other's support, but also the guardians of this new world. And the children who had once been alone and helpless flourished under their care, becoming the beacon of hope for the new world. Epilogue. An eternal vow. Bathed in the twilight of the apocalypse, Ellie and Jack stood atop Greenville's highest point, gazing out at the world reborn with new vitality. They knew full well that the road ahead was long, but as long as they had love, courage, and hope, nothing could stop them from moving forward. No matter how the world changes, Ellie said, clasping Jack's hand tightly, I will fight by your side until the end of the world. Jack gazed back at her tenderly, his eyes shining with resolve. Me too, Ellie. Our love will forever illuminate every corner of this world.